first one is Le Havre. Needs no introduction. Very highly rated game already. You've heard of it.
In fact, I believe it's the favorite of game of one of your...
Jeff Kanata from Totally Rad Show and other podcasts, at one point I know cited it as his favorite game, along with many others. It is from Uwe Rosenberg of Agricola fame.
Which we have played.
Oh, yes. Quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Caverna we haven't played. Patchwork we've played. Anyway, this is in the same vein as Agricola and Caverna. Mm-hmm. You have ships, you're buying goods, you're selling goods, you're trying to make the most money, and you're also buying and building buildings with different materials.
And you can starve.
Yes, and you have to feed yourself as well, which is always a plus. We shouldn't, this is kind of like talking about Citizen Kane, you know what I mean? Like everybody, I think most people watching this are probably familiar with it, although this was our first time. So from that perspective, we can talk about what we like.
Well, I think we need a disclaimer first.
Yeah, this wasn't our fault.
No, it was not.
The person who learned the rules for this game learned them incorrectly. Well, they set it up wrong.
Incorrectly.
So the buildings that came out, you're supposed to only be able to buy the buildings or build them in a certain order. They had them arranged in the wrong order. So our
first few turns were sort of...
It was a little skewed. We had some weird... The pacing was not what it should have been.
Right, and... the reason, that's why I wanted to mention that disclaimer, because to me that was really my only issue. Because once we figured that out, I'm like, well, the one thing I was annoying me about this is obviously not there.
Right. So just keep that in mind as we talk about it.
No, but outside of that, I thought it was like a lot of fun, because I can see if that didn't happen, and we were able to not worry so much in those first 10 rounds.
Right.
We would have had it would have been even better. I can see why, like as you said, Jeff Kanata said it was his favorite game, and how you said this was Citizen Kane. I really did, once we got to the end, enjoy it. And if we had the early part, I think we would have been enjoying it the entire time.
It is. So it is. It's interesting because it's kind of a heavy game, but kind of not at the same time. I guess Agricola is the same way. It really is.
I would lean it towards heavy, but
I think because it's simple. The rules are straightforward, but the strategy is very complex.
That's why I lean it towards heavy, because it's definitely something. I mean, we've seen it when we played it. Whether we were wrong, I think this wouldn't be removed if we changed it. Analysis paralysis.
For sure, because without the analysis paralysis, the turns are actually quite fast.
Oh, how many times was there well, it's your turn. Fish.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm done. Just.
Yeah. You really only have max two things to do on your turn, and it just moves.
But to me, one of the things that also was hilarious, and I don't know, the rule, because the way we played it might not have.
Mm-hmm. Again, we gave our disclaimer.
Yes. The person who read the rules did read online about it. And it was I read online, everyone ends the game with 7 loans and stuff. And I know for me, I was just a loan? No.
Right,
no.
You can take out loans if you don't have enough money. And that just obviously seems like a bad thing, because then you're in debt.
It does remind me of when you said how Eclipse, it's weird how going bankrupt helps you. And
right,
stuff.
it's one of those weird rules you have to get your head around, where the common logic isn't necessarily the way you should play. Sometimes you have to hurt yourself. It's got to get worse before it gets better, basically, which sometimes I find very off-putting. But because in this game none of us really did it, it didn't come up.
Well, yeah, and I don't think in this case it's too bad, because unlike that one, the loan is pretty obvious to understand. Pay money,
it's pretty straightforward
compared to that one, because the other one we mentioned is, I don't know why. And we'll talk about that if we ever actually play and bring Eclipse to the table. But
right.
We're here about Le Havre.
But other than that, yeah, I liked it a lot. There are a lot of... My biggest issue, I definitely think this is a game, also again like Agricola, it helps a lot if you have played it a few times, because knowing what every building actually does and when they're coming up, and which goods do what.
Right. Yeah,
it helps a lot, because I definitely felt overwhelmed by there's so many buildings, and at a certain point I just got lost.
And then by the time you realize that what the ships did, there weren't any left for you.
Right. But it's funny, because in the end I felt terrible, but our scores were all 20 apart. It was a very even spread.
And
All right, it's 'cause
I
you
only
bought-
beat you because I bought a luxury liner in my last turn.
Right, so it was interesting. And also the other funny thing about this is because we had before
And but I
this,
did not win though. That should.
right, before this we had already played the Tasty Minstrel game Harbor, and now retroactively realized that that's kind of a light parody of this game. At least I assume it's intentional.
It seems so close. How can it not?
They're very similar, which is kind of funny. Made me want to play that game again also. So if you haven't tried it,
Try it.
It's
and
up
play
there
it
for
right.
reason. It definitely has that Uwe Rosenberg. It's punishing. It's very thinky. Like you will, but for what it is, and it didn't take us that. Like it took us what the box said it took, more or less. So
For once.
yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Not because the boxes are wrong, because we're terrible.
Yeah, because we're terrible. So we played another game. The other game that we played, very different, was Kingsport Festival.
Yes. This is one I actually got last Gen Con, and I've been dying to play it.
Explain it for us.
So the idea is you're all cultists, not working together. It's not cooperative. And you're in Kingsport and you're trying to, gain the most power around there. And you're going to do that from spreading influence, pledging to different elder gods each turn, trying to survive raids from investigators.
So now I'm saying, another Cthulhu game. What makes this one so special?
Nothing, I'm sorry.
Well, see you next time, everybody.
This definitely plays differently. One, at least from what I play. Usually, a lot of the Cthulhu games, I usually think playing from the investigator's point of view. Or at the very least, both sides.
Or sometimes the gods themselves.
Yes. What this did, and I think one of the biggest comparisons, as you and Garrett both said, is it plays like a tech tree. Because as you're gaining influence on the board, depending on where you are, you'll get special perks. And it became obvious that certain areas gave some really nice perks, and like to the right of the board gave you more for like fighting against raids, but like the lower left was like more for spells and stuff.
Right, and it was very interesting because you have 12 tokens and there's 12 rounds, and each round you can expand to a new area once. So, at first, like I was thinking, ideally you would get to use all these tokens, but based on your resources, you have to decide which way do I
save
go.
up to go to a bigger place?
Right, should I specialize here or there? And also our scenario was different because where other people were already.
Right, and that's the other big
cost
thing. There's
more.
always a scenario which changes the rules of the game. Like we have one where it made it harder to move into an area where someone already is. Some of the other scenarios are like you can't expand into certain things without an extra thing, or you get hurt more with raids.
But at its heart, it's a dice game, right?
Yeah.
Because
In the end, the big thing is you pledge to gods. This is how you get your resources. And to do that, you each have 3 dice. And this is where it becomes very interesting. You roll them. Whoever has the lowest value in total goes first. And using your dice, you pledge to different gods. They have different values, 1 through 19.
Right.
And of course, you'll get spells because you can't roll 19 on 3 dice.
right. At least not 6-sided dice. Unless
And
they
you
have
can
special
choose to either put like all in on one or like spread them out.
So you have to match. So for instance, if you have a 6 and a 4, you could either put them on the 10 or on the 6 and the 4.
Right. But if someone was already pledged to that god, you can't.
Right.
So there's a lot more of, I can lock you out from this one, or am I afraid that this will get locked out for me?
It reminded me a lot of Roll For It, that dice game. It kind of takes that scenario into a more heavier realm. That was the most fun part for me, was figuring out, how do I divide up these dice and where do they go?
And also, so it's a big dice rolling resource management with a tech tree involved.
Yeah, which sounds like a lot, but it's a pretty simple game.
No, actually, I think it was the most complicated thing is just, I think, understanding your dice and what you can go, and the spells.
Yeah. But yeah, really, it's not that complicated.
Yeah,
but it was fun. It's kind of funny because we just played Ancient Terrible Things, and they're good double feature. They kind of
except I didn't screw
right.
up.
We didn't screw this one up.
Yeah, we screwed it. We didn't even talk about it last episode because I screwed it up so bad.
Right.
So when we play it right, we'll talk about it.
I don't remember if we did. I thought we did talk about it. I don't remember.
Well, probably not in full like we do.
But anyway, this was cool. I will say I loved the artwork of the gods on the cards.
The other thing that's really big about this, I should mention, that I think almost to a fault, I'm going to argue a little bit.
Yeah.
They put a lot of detail in, in the back of each elder god. You can flip it over, explains their ability, but then a whole at least paragraph on who the god is. The rule booklet, almost every margin is describing the investigator or the books that the spells are from. And because of that, they almost put so much effort in that. We had a lot of questions on a couple things, and that's my biggest issue with
Yeah.
a couple rulings.
There were the nitty gritty stuff is where I couldn't find much online. They definitely could have done a little clearer with the rules.
Like, that's my only issue, but definitely if you're like a Lovecraft fan, you'll love this because they put all that effort in, and
Right.
and because
It is
it's
cool.
actually, and I think that's where it could shine because it's much simpler. I think overall as a game, like it seems complex, but really it's not hard to learn.
Well, the one other thing that I did not like was just their choice of color scheming for the board and
Versus
for
the pieces.
and for the cubes and pieces.
Right.
It was a little hard to read. It reminded me a lot of the Study in Emerald first edition board. When you look at it, it just is everything kind of just washes together in a weird way.
But what I'm getting to is this: if you want to introduce someone to Cthulhu lore, this is great because you'd be like, "I'm punching this. Who is that? Well, that's Narlatep. Read the back."
Right.
And
Sure.
she'll give you but I mean, it'll give if you're trying to learn and you wade into the horrifically dark waters that is Lovecraft lore. This is probably a good jumping off point, board game wise.
Yeah.